Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to weekend two. And I thought it'd be useful to look back and remind you of some of the headlines from weekend one. One of the things we talked about was the difference between climate and weather, with weather being the stuff that's happening out there right now, but climate being these long-term trends in temperature and rainfall and the like, averaged out over many, many years. Our measurements of those long-term trends indicate that key aspects of the planet's climate are changing. And one of the most critical aspects is carbon dioxide. And I showed this record of showing a steady year-on-year increase in our measurements of carbon dioxide since the 1960s. Today, reaching levels that are unprecedented over the last few million years. Now, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, and the growing accumulation of its warming effect in the atmosphere is due to the industrial burning of fossil fuels and also from some agricultural emissions. Now, of course, there's still natural variability out there. There's volcanic eruptions, there's changes in the sun's output, but it's universally accepted by climate scientists and endorsed by every major scientific organization in the world that the main driver of this unprecedented climate change is us, humans. We heard from Kate about that changing climate and its impact on our planet. She talked about warming oceans, she talked about rising seas, she talked about the increasing incidence of serious flooding and drought. And she also spoke about the impacts on livelihoods and agriculture, tourism, threats to historic global heritage sites. But she talked most passionately, I thought, about the impacts on people, about how it's becoming really hard to live in certain parts of Bolivia, for example, or the surge of deaths in the recent heat wave in France. And she gave this shocking statistic that it's expected that if the global temperatures rise by 2 degrees, then we can anticipate losing the world's coral reefs. Now, what do we do about that? Well, Kate also talked about how it was really important to involve us, people, everyone really, in decision making, and also about building for this future climate change. She spoke about the importance of making changes to adapt to the climate that was coming, but making sure that we didn't make changes that made the situation worse. So, for example, designing buildings that would stay cool in hot weather through green roofs rather than through air conditioning. And then I spoke to you about the importance of climate targets and the global agreement that was signed in Paris in 2015 to restrict warming to 2 degrees and to pursue a target of 1.5 degrees. I said that reducing emissions wasn't enough. We had to reach net zero. And I showed you this diagram, which showed what net zero by 2045 might look like. I also mentioned that under the Paris Climate Agreement, there were these three principles of equity, of responsibility, and capability. And in the same vein, Tassine introduced you to some ideas about thinking about fairness and equity, while Anna, if you recall, had us bouncing around via rock and roll, thinking about how you enable change. And then the end of weekend one, the evidence really came from Dave, who was talking about his heroes. And we spoke about areas where we needed to reduce our emissions, sectors like energy, agriculture, waste, industry, travel. But most importantly, I thought he encouraged us to think imaginatively, creatively, positively about how Scotland can tackle the climate emergency in a fair and effective way. And that, of course, is where you come in.